Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good as always. In this video, I want to talk about theurgy. And before we go into the theurgy, I want to describe the energy dynamic on this planet and this, I suppose, virtual reality. And to communicate this idea of inevitability, of the illusion of the free will. First of all, there are two ways of life: matrix and holistics. And I've mentioned a little bit about how the matrix is run, the drive of matrix. And I said that it is about lust-based release or orgasm. I just coined it that way, but it is about, due to incoherence in the soul, a being is searching for the momentary coherence outside of themselves. And it leads to this release through the masculine perspective. It's the dominance, and through the feminine perspective is submission. It's a sadomasochistic world. In this world, people get off on self-torture or torturing another. Okay? And all possible actions that every single individual may take in the matrix is not up to them. They can't help it. What I'm trying to communicate here, there's a lot of these actions they cannot help but do it. Because of the drive, incentive, and I'm talking about the seed of the seed of the seed of why they embark on this elaborate scheme for that release that they can only acquire through either domination and submission. Okay? All the participants of the matrix are like that. The most successful participants of the matrix, the most successful, by the way, this is how you define what you would call elite. With some rare exceptions, is how do you become successful in the matrix or on the top of the matrix? The only way you can do that, because you're just like anybody else there, is that if you are manipulating what it means for that temporary release from the incoherence, from suffering, right? What does it mean? And so people who are into the black magic and these types of rituals and stuff like that, they do these rituals for this specific reason. They do this to create, what does it mean? Because they want the outcome. Okay, they want specific outcome. And so they have the outcome in mind. And so what they do is they link that outcome with that state of consciousness, which is the lower drive orgasm or the release. Okay? Now, So what you can do within the matrix, if you play the game like that, you can just attach the meaning to that outcome. The matrix is always going to move itself towards that release, and the people at the top, they just control that release and say that release means this, that release means that, that release means, you know, when somebody kills somebody that I want, and then that person dies, and the person who shot that person was driven by it because they were seeking of release from their anguish, and the meaning was attached that you will have the release from the anguish once you're going to kill that person. Muppets. So when you, this is what I would say, you would call the seed, the beginning and the end of all evil. It is this lower drive orgasm. Okay? The problem with this is, you know, people who control this lower drive orgasm, so to speak, are what you would class vampires. There's many other words for it, but there are people who control the lower drive orgasm, and they attach the meaning of what does that mean. Okay? But they are actually in the in the scheme of the game are of course villains, the true villains. That's what they call them, occult, because it's not visible, or they don't do it in a visible way. Now everything's coming to the surface, and people are kind of saying like, oh yeah, okay, I know. And a lot of these people who are supposed to be famous and whatever are coming out. And I'll tell you something else about this. The question you may have is said, okay, this is how to win in the matrix, and this is how to be a good villain. Okay, fair enough. As you can see, you are not controlling the look, you are not controlling the, what you will call it, physically. They're not hiring the people to kill the specific person or whatever. They're not doing any of that. They have specific outcome that they want. They link that outcome with that lust, lower drive release. Okay. This is the reason I'm laughing is that the whole house of cards is going to is collapsing, and I'll tell you why. This is why I'm telling you this, and it's not kind of a secret. And even if you say like, oh my god, you're kind of telling us of how to win in the matrix and how to be a villain, really how to be a real villain. Yeah, but the reason I'm saying this to you is because it's not gonna work for you anymore. It's not going to work for you. What am I saying for you? Like, why am I accusing you of being a bad guy? No, I'm saying the theoretical person who would, if they would engage into that, this is the horrible time to engage into that, and let me explain you why. You can see some of these lower occult people who may also contribute to that. They might not know why they would contribute their energy and wish somebody bad. Like, for example, that's when it comes to like witches, right? And they do some black magic out of anger and say, you know, political ideology, whatever. Like, it's ridiculous to do this. But why would they engage and they contribute their energy, their imagination, for that particular outcome? It's because whoever controlled the highest the seed of evil, created a chain reaction, and then all the lower ones fall into place. And the lower ones think that they're the ones who caused that effect. They're the ones who decided to imagine this bad thing happening. From their perspective, a good thing, because they would feel the release. No, they're victims. This is why all witches are victims. And sometimes people say, I'm a good witch. There's no such thing as a good witch. You're playing with words, and you shouldn't be, because witch is a witch. And so, and also, you are, the witch is a very gullible. The witch is actually submitting to the authority of the warlock, if you will. She believes that she made that choice, but she really was just being manipulated to do this. And so the empowerment that they feel, they're like, oh, I caused this, is an illusion, and but it gets them off on the fact that, oh, I have the power. Okay, so this is how they play that game, this dark game. That's how the whole matrix is being run, based on this. Okay, what else I can say about this? Political outcomes are controlled like that. There's a lot of things that are being controlled like that. But now, look, this is why it's such a bad news to be a villain or the energy vampire. And it's like I said, it's a pyramid scheme. It's a vampirism pyramid scheme. It's an energy vampirism pyramid scheme, right? It works like that. Now, the question you may ask, okay, what's the way out? What's the solution? Because, okay, the entire matrix is based on the sadomasochistic, self-inflicted, or inflicted, the suffering on other people. It just works like that. And the reason, how do you vote to participate in this game or not, is, like I mentioned in the previous video, is through your own. Where is your release? Where is your release? Is it release? Your release is in a lower drive, in a lower drive orgasm, lust-based orgasm. Is that where you release? Because if it's so, you're giving your energy away. You see, you're just giving your energy away and facilitating the system. I'm really saying something that is true. You do this with your attention. If watching something that is kind of, triggers you or whatever, this will contribute the energy. It's an energy contribution. If you get a satisfaction from any kind of external situation, whether it's true or not, or maybe watch the video and say, like, well, oh, okay, I got a satisfaction because this person got what they deserve, or whatever, or whatever the nonsense is going on. It's this release that you've experienced due to external circumstances is the energy contributed to the matrix. Now, and like I mentioned in the previous video, you cannot fight through the will. You will not win this war through will. You will only win this war through the attention and awareness. And whenever your entire uh, consciousness navigational system access changes, that is when you begin to get out of it. I would say that it is no longer you're no longer driven by motivation, because for the motivation you have to have a motive. And look at the paradox of people trying to gain motivation. Oh, how do I facilitate my motivation? It's just another word of like, how do I contribute more to this, you know, shit machine? Because why do you need the motivation? What is the motive? And if you really dig down, you'll see that the motive is to get that release, the lower drive release. That's why you do everything. This is a wrong thing to do. It doesn't matter how romantically you paint of what you do. It's just going to be romanticized. That thing that is just going to contribute to the whole, suffering machine. This is why I'm so careful to take any action from the motivation. And because I don't want to contribute to the system. Like, I could create and innovate a lot of cool stuff, but I don't want to contribute to the system. I want my energy to be contributed to the holistic society that is out, incorruptible and untouchable by that crap. That's where I want to put my, talent. So success in the matrix is a loser in life. And it is not about, sometimes, for example, people say, well, why don't you go out and do something about this? Okay. Road to hell paved with good intentions. It is only the person who does not see the picture from the bird's eye view would say such a nonsense. Everything starts from the seed. Everything starts from the energy. The first thing, you got to get the fuck out of the matrix and to have no motive anymore. The energy then becomes inspiring energy. Is from the inspiration, not from the motivation. You don't do things out of motivation anymore. Like, of course, to do your everyday tasks, that requires a motive, of course, but it's a physical arrangement. You don't do this to prove a point. You don't do this to regain respect, or like all these ego games that that release that you're trying to look at. You don't do anything out of that. But if there's something physically that needs to be done, carried from one place to another, and something, yes, sure, that's the only place where the motive has its own place. Only in the physical reason. Something fell down, the motive is to pick it up. Perfectly fine. It's not a problem. But when the motive is like, oh, I have to prove this person that this or that, and I have to do this, that's a motive. Or you have a motive to harm another person or do whatever. It's a motive. Okay, I'm communicating the distinction of this. The motive must be in the locomotive field, not psychological. Because what I would describe as ego, when it's transformed, and some of it is contributed to the skill and habit and the application of it and order in your physical life, it's healthy. And sometimes people say healthy ego. There's no such thing as a healthy ego, because what we have to, again, be careful with definitions. The ego, what is defined by ego, is the belief system that is built on top of the distortion in your soul. And if you eliminate that belief system, which is a type of memory, right? Knowledge, internal psychological knowledge, and only contribute that to the brain area, which is like how to navigate the physical world through skills, specific habits, and all these different things. Then you allocate that energy that was psychological to physiological, and that is correct. It's totally good. It's very good to have a skill. It's very good to have a right habits, not psychological habits, but physiological habits. Meaning, for example, once you do something over and over again, you develop physiological habit, then your body has a memory. And this is what I'm talking about. The body memory is wonderful, which is, the brain body memory, in terms of like having a skill where it's sort of automatic. You just do this because it's programmed in the body. This is where the knowledge is supposed to exist. This is where the motive exists as well. Because body doesn't do anything out of psychological motives in this case. It's just like, well, there's a hunger. Go and eat something. But you don't eat it because I feel bad. Let me eat something. It's not like that. It's like, okay, there's a deficiency of nutrients in your system. Poof, go eat something. Poof, and you go eat something. Okay, so I just described a little bit more about motivation and what I mean by that. And I defined it very clearly, and I did not say that it's about complete eradication of the motivation. It is placing motivation in the right location, which is physiological. And you got to be only through the alchemy you will find out whether you had a motive that was ulterior, I suppose, or was it just because of physiological needs. Okay? Physiological motive, perfectly fine. It's your body maintenance, your habitat maintenance, your business maintenance. That's all fine. It's not a problem. Okay? Okay, now, let's look at the bright side now and see that if the energy is contributed to the matrix system, every time there is this release, this ego satisfaction, it is contributing to the system. It's reinforcing it. And this way, you can have good intentions, but if your consciousness is organized based on this thing, you are participating in the evil games. I'm talking to people who have a capacity to get out. I'm not talking to people who do not have the capacity to get out, because people who do not have the capacity to get out, they can't help it. This is why there's no reason to be angry at anybody from even the people who are controlling that seed energy and making everybody else think certain thoughts, imagine certain, and contribute to that outcome. Okay? They cannot help it. Nobody can help it. Not even the person who was at the top. That person who's at the top is the biggest victim in the scheme of the entire game, because it fell for the trick. Now, every time you alchemize something, and it's again, I'm defining it very clearly. I'm not saying something, for example, the word desire has been used. This is to mean, no, you can't just use one word where there's metaphysical states and functions and processes that are opposite. You see, what I say soul desire is different to the ego tantrum. I'd separate those two. This is why everybody in the matrix are playing tantrum games and don't even realize it. They can't see it. They can't help it. As long as in that state of seeking for the solution to the suffering, they are in the matrix, and sometimes people call they are not awake or aware, they're asleep. That's what they say. Or sometimes people say NPC. Now, some of these people may have an occasion where they're out of that trance for a little moment, and the soul kind of may shine through for the moment and then just snap back up again. That may happen. Um, Now, a lot of these people, they can't help it. They depend on external influence and vibration, um, to whether they be in a matrix way of action or the holistics way of action. And now I want to get to the holistics, and how do you take that energy away from the matrix system? And of course, the answer is through the alchemy. And one of the lust transmutation that I was talking in the previous video is one of those ways, is through lust transmutation. I want to add a little bit more details about this, because there's not just the lust, there's many different levels, 7 rainbow colors, if you will, is 7 energy centers. Each one has 4 elements to be alchemized. Okay, and then there's 2 polarities, which is, masculine, feminine. So every ball of energy within your system, something you call them chakras. I don't call them chakras. I just want to avoid the new aginess. Originally, they meant this way, but if you explain this to a person who's not an alchemist and they're not actually going through this, they're just gonna, like these kids, play these little kids games, imagining that is so, but nothing is going on. It's imaginary tricks that they're playing. But some people can do this, and they don't stuck in the imagination. They can actually break through and transmute energies. That is the only will that you have. The true will, which is through your attention and awareness, you can make the permanent change. Every time you do this, you take the energy from the matrix and you contribute it to the holistics. Because what happens is that you end up being, first of all, in a protected field, because the more of light you acquire, which is this blissful state, the more love you acquire, which is this peaceful state, through the alchemy, the less all of that triggers you, and the more of the energy you take away from it. And don't think for one second that it's like what's the big deal if I just do this, and how that's going to change everything. It will change everything in your reality. It will change everything. And if you do this, you and I, we're just going to share the reality, because we've both done it. And in our reality, matrix is going to be gradually losing its energy to sustain itself, glitching out and collapsing, and the rituals not failing because they do not have the energy for it. The energy has been taken away, and the energy has been taken away into something they cannot retrieve anymore, because it's a permanent change. They cannot retrieve that energy anymore. How are they going to do this? It's been permanently placed in an infinite energy field. And every time you alchemize, it is like, imagine the double torus field, which has a gap in between, and that gap is suffering, and you kind of need to somehow force those two fields come together to get that that release, that lower drive lust orgasm, right? To get that release. So that's ego. That's how ego functions. But every time you alchemize these distortions that ask for that release, it's like they like almost like they deglued or something, or like poof, they detach from it, poof, and they start going into this infinite field. And there's many of them, and every time you detach one, poof, it contributes to the infinite field, and little by little you can unravel, almost like that flower is blooming, and then little by little you have the entire of your soul in one infinite torus field, which feels like peace and bliss. And then your motivation is gone. Instead of motivation, there is inspiration, and in that inspiration wants to do something out of that bliss and peace. You see, it's the opposite. You're not seeking for it anymore. You are it. Now the inspiration is about, okay, what am I going to do with this? You don't need anything from anybody, except your body obviously needs sustenance. But emotionally, you know, you don't need anything from anyone. Like, you are complete and whole. But the relationships are still needed on the level of the soul, because the need is like, okay, what am I going to do with this now? I have to connect with somebody who's also doing this. Like, the need on the soul level is still there, but it's the opposite need. The drive for connecting is there, but the drive for the release is not there anymore. So there's this like, oh, I need this person in order to feel good, as opposed to, I feel so good, I wonder what kind of cool shit I can do with this person. I wonder how it would feel like connecting my energy with that person's energy. It's just like curiosity, not ending or not eliminating the suffering. It is creative process, creative and playful process, because just being by yourself in this peace, bliss, okay, it's good, it's nice, but your soul will always want to do something with it. So this is why it's not going to be like, oh, there's two people and now they're happy by themselves, and so everybody's separate now, because no, it's not like that. You have the drive to play with other people. You still have that drive, but it's inspirational drive, not motivational drive. The drive that, if it's not completed, does not make you crash. It just falls back on this general peace, bliss. And then it can take some sort of rainbow forms when you're interacting with somebody, and then go back to default again. But you're always going to want to have that rainbow, creativity, form, playfulness with someone else. You're still going to want that. But it's not tantrum. It is sort of like upper drive, as you call it. Upper drive. But it doesn't say like, hey, I need you, because if I can't have you, I'm gonna feel bad. It's not saying that. It says like that. It's like that dog, just like brings you the ball and says, and waggles the tail. He says, all right, let's play. See, so that there's that soul desire to play, and so you connect with other people out of that. It is absolutely not this, again, the matrix trap that sometimes people don't get out of it. They stay there and they say, I'm going to imitate that thing that people are talking about. They're talking about, okay, I don't need to need anybody. I'm going to imitate that. That's just a mask. That's super ego. It's not it. Sometimes they say like, well, I don't care whether they are, here or not here. I don't care. It's not it. And sometimes people work so hard of not needing someone else, they will always be needing until that distortion is alchemized. but that they pretend and mask that any kind of way. There's no way out. This is what I'm trying to communicate. There is no way out except through the eye of a needle. Or if you can't go and do yourself this thing, then, and some souls can't, because some souls are stars and some souls are planets, then you want to orbit the sun until you sort of mature enough to become your own sun, kind of thing, right? So every time this peace bliss energy is growing, it's been taken away from the circus games, and the circus games are collapsing. And what is the symptom? Is that the people who are used to gain rejuvenation, longevity, talent, ingenuity, the sharpness of the mind, and all of these different characteristics that one gains due to that last lower drive release, suddenly cannot have that release. Domination does not feel as sweet anymore. Submission does not feel as sweet anymore. That fix is no longer working, because the fire has been taken away and put into light. And so there is this ego burning away without them being asked whether they want it or not, because of course God does not need permission from the devil to do the things that's right. And so anyway, this is the trajectory that is happening right now, and this is why you see the demise of these people physically, because they have been maintaining themselves through vampirism, financially, freedom-wise, and so on and so on. No one is safe in the matrix. Absolutely nobody. Absolutely nobody. This is why I've described this process, how it is done to create in the matrix to get off on the ego satisfaction. And this is why these people who used to do this, because they won't be able to get satisfaction from that, they will get sick, and if they're smart, they will turn to the other side very quickly, break down all of their ego very quickly, and join or die. I've been saying this lately a lot, not through any kind of intention, but it's just join or die seems to be the theme right now. And I also said that we're taking away the fire and putting into the light, based on what Prometheus, you gave fire to the men, and that process is now being reversed. Okay. And I meant to be talking about Theurgy, but I didn't say much about Theurgy. But let me say something about it right now. Now that you have a clarity of how the energy works and what is the real way, and to understand that not to fuck with the black magic anymore, and to have self-respect, decency, and courage to face the things that you need to face, and place attention on the things that you need to place attention on, and start doing that transmutation of the fire into the light, you know, and water into love, if you will. Now, once that is done, every time you transmute it successfully, and you'll know when you've done it correctly that there's this, you're enveloped in a deep peace and bliss, you know, then, only then, the art of theurgy becomes actual. This is why the theurgy is quite deep in this holistic process, and this is why no one can get any value out of this unless they are the alchemist. No one else has any value. This is why it was always written in a kind of weird way, and only the person who's going through it would understand. It is true. But once you are on this side of peace bliss, then what do you do with it? Now, the answer of what you do with it is sometimes called circulation of the light. And you circulate that light based on where you feel like it is needed. Okay? And so then this way you can create the colors of peaceful bliss, which is a state of consciousness and a type of feeling. And so you start creating like music. This is what the real poesis is. This is what the real poetry is. You start with the energy, and then you start creating these different states based on these colors, because you have 7 strings, 7 colors. And so imagine what kind of concoctions you can create with those 7 strings. Each of these 7 strings has the intensity, right? Because you can, pluck the string gently, stronger. You see what I'm trying? There's the degree of that. It's not sort of like a kind of monochronic sound, where it's just like ding, 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 and that's it. That's not how a guitar works. There's a lot of nuances to those 7 strings. The same way, those 7 primordial states, you can make, every time you can make a unique concoction out of this. Unique melody. And that melody that you create with these states, how can I describe it to you? It's like, it may feel like waves, like if you watch the smoke and the way it is dancing, this is what you may be feeling inside your system, and it's moving in a very spontaneous way, and it's very deeply satisfying. But you can move the focus more on the lower, red, you move the focus more on the purple. You are in charge of how you're going to create that music. Kind of in charge. I say kind of because how do you know which note to play? There is a suggestion from the source which note to play. So you're kind of just following the source, really. And it appears that you're creating that music. Okay? But it is your own volition. You may not listen to what is being suggested, but you should, because it will create the most beautiful, spontaneous states of consciousness within your body. It is this feeling of inner dancing, the energy dance that's happening inside of you. And you may say, well, what's that gonna do? That is a form of primordial creation. You have created the melody, the energy melody. Now, you may give it a form. Even if you don't give it a form, but probably you should give it a form, the form as well will be suggested to you. You'll be like, oh, oh, okay, it's this. Only then, guys, only then you engage your imagination. Look at what you've gone through. You've gone through like the negative thought, you know, you debunk that, the emotion, you debunk that, you went to the negative feeling, you alchemize that, and then only when you got that unity with the source, Eros and Logos in one, only then you start playing with Theurgy, which is a creation of this poesis, and then you are imagining. You see? Neville Goddard mentioned a little bit, but most of his teachings got derailed because it was nothing more but the black magic, because people did not go to the feeling first. And sometimes going to the feeling is not just simply going to the feeling. You have to go through all of this ordeal, which, by the way, Joseph Campbell said for your bliss, but he just didn't, maybe forgot to mention that to follow your bliss, you're going to have to go through the ordeals, or maybe he wasn't explicit about it, that you're going to have to go through the ordeals of fire, ordeal of water, ordeal of earth, and ordeal of air. Multiple levels. You're going to have to go through all of these ordeals in order to get to your bliss. Yes, you should be following your bliss, but it's hidden behind the misery, I suppose, or the negative feelings. And that's why it's a tricky thing, because sometimes people may say, well, I'm just following my bliss, but they're not following the bliss, they're following the, okay, we have to use another word for it. It is a type of getting off, and it's not ecstasy, because ecstasy is a beautiful word. It is pleasure. What is the not so beautiful word that describes this? Like when an addict keeps trying to get himself off on something. Like, what is that word? Addiction, but there's this release, fix. Okay, let's just use fix, but there should be better. So there's this, it's not following your fix, it is following your bliss. And the bliss is inside, and it's hidden behind all of these ordeals. That's the true bliss. It's not bliss. Fix is not bliss. If you've taken the drug and you're experiencing euphoria, this is not bliss. This is imitation. You're just getting off on it. Okay? And so, what would happen if I would teach you, manifestation, or like many people do? I'm the manifestation coach. I'm going to help you, to do this. Yeah, you're just going to accelerate disaster in people's lives. This is what you're going to do. And some people, they realize, like, yeah, I know, but it's just like my livelihood depends on sustaining the matrix. What can I do? If you have what it takes to get the fuck out, get the fuck out. It's better to do it on your own volition than be forced to. So, that's the true theurgy. I did not learn it from the book. It happened to me. And only later, even the word alchemy, wasn't that I started with the alchemy. It was what was going on with me. And then later I realized, oh, that's what they were talking about in the alchemy. The same thing with theurgy. This amazing thing is happening in me. That's theurgy. And then sometimes people call thaumaturgy, which is the second part of magic. The theurgy is a soul magic. because the intention is born, because you're intentionally moving to this state, to that state, based on how it feels right for you. The intention is there. It's not attention anymore. And this is why you cannot move to the intention until the attention is done with transmuting everything. Then you can move to the intention and start playing with the energy that you discovered. And it's actually playing around, really. If you've ever danced a spontaneous dance where you don't know the next move that you're going to make, it's a little bit like that with the energy. Okay? Now, and the thaumaturgy is what kind of form you're going to give to the poiesis that you've created. Okay? And only then you get to the magic, to the real magic, which is use your imagination. And it may be that sometimes times are very alchemically heavy, and the alchemical process takes the lion's share of it, and then you have like a brief moment for the theurgy and thaumaturgy. Now, when you are linking that a true bliss to the outcome, which is your imagination, that's what thaumaturgy is. Also, the universe can't help but make that happen. It is the law. Okay? Again, I just want to reiterate quite clearly. I don't know if it matters if I say this or not, but I just want to say that coming clean is the best way. I know a lot of people engage with the Kabbalah that was actually Kabbalah, not Kabbalah, because it also gets distorted. Just like Christianity, everything gets distorted. And Kabbalah has the tree of life path and the tree of knowledge path, the villain and the hero. And what I'm trying to say, I'm not even judging the villain. And I said this in my previous video very clearly. I'm not angry against the villain. I know exactly what's going on. I know that they cannot help it. I know how the system works, the whole virtual reality, how this holographic reality works. Just like I don't get angry at my laptop. I may have gotten angry before when I did not get the clear view, or did not have a clear view. But right now, I have no anger. I transmuted all the anger into clarity. Maybe there might be some of it left, wherever it's there. If it arises, I will transmute that also. I will leave no stone unturned, all of it. um, and every time I do it, it gets clarity, and I gain neutrality, because um, I become on a side of the natural way of things, and that's the way you gain neutrality. Because, like I said before in my previous video, truth is neutral, and that neutrality, also neutron star. Why is it called this way? Because it's neutralizing everything. It is repelling specific things and pulling specific things in a completely appropriate way through the organizing principle. Neutron star is what God principle really is. It is neutral. It is just doing its things, and little by little it's gaining its light. How it's gaining its light? The center of the galaxy, there's a black hole and the neutron star in the center, and is gaining its light, that gamma ray, from the matter being burned into the uh, black hole. So do you see how it's all just happening naturally? And to you, because now you gain the perspective of that neutron star black hole, and you are that neutron star now in that black hole, that just eating that energy and tuning into the light and love. You're at the center of it. Nothing can touch you, and you're just watching the show happening without any kind of animosity towards anybody or anything. And because you're in that center, from your perspective, your holographic reality works this way in a natural way, and you don't have to move things. You don't have to wish this thing to happen. No, you just do your alchemy, magic, and might, and really, that's pretty much it. And you just watch little by little. You give it time for everything to change the way it's supposed to change. That's how you contribute the most to the universal order. You contribute this way the most to the universal order of things. And you wouldn't mind universal order of things because you are that universal order of things. How can you mind a peaceful bliss, process of creation and playfulness? Nobody minds that. Even the villains, who were just having a brief moments of that through incredible efforts and, you see, exhaustions, and they get just a brief moment of that, and they have to work really hard to get another of that moment. They do everything for that, but they do it in the wrong way. They would definitely not mind not to be in a process of exhaustion and to be in that state that they've always been seeking for. Nobody's against this, except the ego, which doesn't really exist and is just the matter that is disorganized. And it doesn't have its own authority. That's another thing. Ego doesn't have its own authority. It's as significant as the fart in the wind. I used to give ego significance. I used to, people would say something out of ego, and I would give significance. And you say, well, they would judge a person and say, hey, well, that person is kind of now. When anything comes out of the mouth from the ego, it's just like the significance of the fart in the wind. That's what it all is. And if you find it humorous, which is just natural for you to find it humorous, and they keep on going or whatever, just wait. That's all you gotta do. It doesn't have fuel. It cannot sustain itself unless you throw some fuel on it. It will get exhausted and it will give up, because the ego's secret desire is to disappear. And when it will disappear, the soul will finally be happy, and the soul will say like, "Oh, thank God that motherfucker is gone." And the person is gonna be real with you and natural and stuff like that. That's how you deal with everything. So, to summarize this, there's nothing you can do in life if you're in the influence of the matrix. Everything is inevitable, and your thoughts are going to be influenced by it, and decisions, everything is going to be influenced by it. But through the alchemy, you can get out and start getting the gravity of your own sustainable energy center, that peace, bliss. And once you're there, there's a creative and playfulness process that's taking place. And then, only then, you have a true freedom and liberty. Okay? Only then. But I also have to say something about this side. Because I mentioned that the true freedom and liberty is not some sort of intrinsic, or I shouldn't say intrinsic, but it's not something that you have like your own personal authority. No, it is that the way your soul is, this is what you want already. Which means that there is a will, what we call free will, that is an illusion of free will, which is always leads to release of lower drive, and then the will that sets you free, which is the will of the upper drive. But you can only go in two directions. What's going to happen in the matrix direction is going to be predetermined. It's just basically you can say, well, that's the way the person is going to behave if they're acting from the ego, in that specific person. And the same person, this is what's going to happen when they act from the soul. What's going to happen this way, what's going to happen that way, that's already existing. So your choice is the matrix way and the Holistix way. That's only choice that there is. After that, there's an appearance of unfoldment of the nightmare in the matrix case, or unfoldment of the dream come true in the Holistix case. There's an appearance of unfoldment, and because it's so spontaneous, the surprise of every moment, but also the certainty that is going to be amazing, is that true creative and playful process that every soul wants to be in. Now, it does also include the physical protection is absolutely necessary. It's out of the question. Everything that I'm talking about is in your psyche, in your soul. When it comes to physical world, it has its own laws, and you cannot, everything I said to you today cannot be applied on the physical world. In the physical world, you still need to have the house that protects you. You still need to take care of your body. You still need to take care of your nutrition. You still need to, all of these different things must take place. And you still need to protect yourself just in case. You need to be physically, you need to be extremely difficult to kill. You have to be extremely difficult to kill physically. But because that's what you do in a video game, you still have that drive on a physical level. But it's not a big deal if it doesn't work out. Does that make sense? It's almost like you protect your right to be in a physical body and to have the creative and playful process that you're enjoying. And your right to do that must be protected from the dark forces. The boundary must be so solid. This is why I really love, the idea of these holistic societies. They're not weak. They're not communist. They're not hippie societies. These are very military, powerful, protectorate-based societies. And that's the hallmark of the holistics. It's not open. It is mature innocence. The playfulness and renaissance is happening within it, but it is not open. It can protect itself. And this is the only thing that will be sustainable. And whether it's on this planet, Matrix must be isolated from the holistics. And whether it's off the planet, Matrix must be isolated from the holistics. And and that is just puts everything on the natural phase of evolution. And Matrix gradually is shrinking because it's just natural, but without the effort and attempt to dominate the Matrix or crush the Matrix, it's eating itself. It's just the way if you look at how the galaxy works, it looks like it's eating itself on the matter level, but then it's shooting those big gamma rays and putting in a new object that's coming in on the outskirts, joining the gravity, and it's renewing itself like that. That is what's really going on. Now, if this is true, what I'm saying, which it is, look at the futility of doing anything else besides that. That should rid of all the Matrix instilled guilt of why you're not a productive citizen. You have to be a pretend good citizen because there's a lot of things you still depend on the Matrix. But your contribution must be to the things like Web 3.0, decentralization, virtual society, like virtual holistic society, permaculture. This is where your talent's supposed to be. It's like inventing, ways of growing food. This is where you do not contribute nothing to the system. Nothing. And even if you come up with some sort of innovation, you use the system laws to protect your innovation so copycats cannot steal it. And then what you do, you open it so anybody can do it, but the corporates cannot profit from it. You gotta still play that game like this. You don't do it to gain advantage in the market for like those 10 or 15 years, which is what is supposed to be for. You still patented everything, and you patented everything, and then you opened everything. So there's nobody. It's a free. Now everybody can use this and create anything. So there's none of this bullshit game that the corporate sometimes trying to play. But as an individual, if you do this, you have to do it smart like that. So there's this You got to play uh, the matrix from the holistic perspective. You have to be in control of the matrix. It should not be in control of you, but you're supposed to be. You still know exactly, which buttons to press to get the specific result that you want, which is just your intellect being applied in the right way, uh, and not taking this as like a hippie idea. It's like, well, we're just going to ignore the matrix completely. No, you got to create boundaries there. You got to lock that bitch up, so so it doesn't mess with you. And if you have this idea that, okay, whatever you do, how you want to live this life, how are you going to protect it? And if you protect it, then you can live in the holistic way. Okay? Which, by the way, that protection comes also naturally because, you see things with clarity and you know how to build structures, what kind of systems you build that are propagate holistics, but kind of ban the matrix. Okay? All right, guys, it's been over an hour. I shared sufficiently enough, and hope you enjoyed it, and hope you can see that the only way out is through the eye of the needle. And peace. See you next one.